a long time alongside myself in Hellstorm.
Yeah, like over a year for sure. And I remember thinking that IMATH made his own regiment too, the 9E, and they thought that we were going to disband because we were kind of one of those break off regs. And just to talk a little
Yeah,
bit, like for if you're listening right now, you know that when a regiment tends to break off, right, there tends to be like a separation. It's usually rare that the regiment actually sticks around after a while, but there are success stories of where regiments break off from a main group and then they stick around and stay together, and it's always impressive to see that happen.
yeah, we were a solid group of guys. We were good friends, and I think
Yeah, we
that's what
really
made us
were.
stick together because we were so used to being with each other. We just didn't know what else to do. So
I
it
think
turned
that
out to be
was
a
it
very
for the
good
whole thing.
regiment, like a small to medium sized group of guys who always got along well, and we kind of maintained that rivalry with the 104/9E.
What would you
That you
say the
know,
biggest achievement was in the 30 that you had
um,
yourself?
for well, I guess for myself and the Rich, it would be the point where we actually got to beat the 104 or 9E in a 1v1, kind of
Yeah,
proving, just if we broke off and we're better, kind of a thing, competitive streak.
we did lose at one point though, right?
Oh, we lost plenty of times because they had some really good guys, and
But it was just
we
that
were
one
kind of still
time we
learning.
needed to beat them.
But the one or two times that we did beat them was
Yeah,
was a high point for us
yeah.
as far as I can remember.
Um, Now, how did that influence you when you came into the uh, the 60, or you broke off into the 12th? Why did you decide to leave the 3T?
Well, at the time, the treaty was we renamed to the First Irish Brigade, and
Uh huh.
people were kind of losing interest. As far as I remember, at the time, I was trying to do my best to keep the regiment going, and I think Crusader and Hellstorm they kind of were busy with IRL stuff,
Yeah, they
their
weren't really interested in
college
keeping
jobs
up
and
the
whatnot.
regiment, I noticed.
So they didn't have too much time on their hands, and I wasn't the colonel. I was like commandant, which was like third in command of the regiment at the time.
Uh huh.
And I thought to myself, what's the point? People are kind of losing interest, and they only want to be here. Um, well, a lot more people would be around if Hellstorm or Crusader were still around. So I was kind of leading a dying regiment at that point on my own,
I
without
can
being the
kind of
colonel.
relate because going off. I know this is an Anthony's interview, but but when I was making the AEF, I felt the same thing. When the 3T started to get near the end, it was kind of a sick regiment
Yeah,
because the members there were very devout to the regiment. Like I, as a member, it was the hardest thing to leave that group of guys because they were a very tight knit community, and I didn't really feel like I ever was in another regiment, so it was kind of hard. And I know anybody listening, when you leave your first regiment, it's a really weird type of feeling, that first community, and you move on to other things. And
exactly.
yeah, I think you did a really successful job with the moving into the 12th. But how was that starting up? How was that getting those kinks out? How was that?
Well, I with the help of Apple Orgasm, who was okay, still is a server host, a TeamSpeak server host. Made friends. We made friends with him in the 3T or the first IB at some point, and
Uh-huh.
we kind of just stuck with him. I was playing games with him every so often, and eventually, he offered me free servers, and I just took it and set up a TeamSpeak, set up a server, sat on the server. Like I don't know, I don't know how many hours I was on that game server. This was like late 2015, I believe. When people were still playing the game, buying the game, and I just recruited every single day for like 2 weeks solid, and I got 60 people in 2 weeks, and kind of formed the basis of what
Now, could you
what
explain
Reg-
more on every day about how much effort actually goes into recruiting? Because I think some people underappreciate it.
I was. God, I don't know. I was on the server for about 2 or 3 hours per day,
Yeah, I
just
know
on the server.
it's crazy. It really is. Like as another person who's led a regiment before, the amount of time and energy that goes into recruiting. Like I hate recruiting, but it's one of those things you have to do, or else you like die. You know?
Yeah, especially with the initial setup of a regiment, because I
Oh,
never
oh
did as much
yes.
recruiting as I did in the initial stages of the 12th, of,
Well, that's when you
now
find out
now
who's
known as 60.
compatible. You know? That's
Yeah,
like you need to find out who fits, and a lot of people get weeded out. But then you start to get the team and the community there, and um this kind of leads into a bigger question. I know we can get more in depth, of course, with your leading, but more of a question to you. What do you think was your greatest achievement leading? And then I also want to get into some failures after, but right now we can focus on that.
My greatest achievement leading.
Or maybe your biggest success just as a leader. So it doesn't even have to be, I guess, in-game. It could be, though, nonetheless.
Well, I guess getting the 60 to a point where we were bringing in a lot of people per event, and there was actually an active, vibrant community on the TeamSpeak. You know, just having set up a community that was successful, that could stand on its own 2 feet for at least a bit. That was the most that was the the most successful thing in my eyes, because you kind of start wanting to see your community flourish and getting a lot of people together and integrating people into that culture and seeing people improve and develop under the 60 name was a success in my eyes. I didn't need any more than that initially.
Now, here's a tough question, and you're gonna have to be a little bit vulnerable for this, but what was your biggest failure, you think? What's your biggest trip up you have?
Well, I would say there is two failures when it comes to the 60. One failure, and this is kind of long term, would be the fact that I built the regiment kind of around myself, and people wouldn't really show up to event. Well, some people would, but not as many people would show up to events if I was not around, which kind of happens in most regiments. But
Yeah.
I was on so much, like I was killing myself being on every night. Like I'm pretty sure I developed like insomnia being on stage as a European, being up North American times. But
so in American time, when did you have to get up for events?
Well, for events it would be gather the troops at 12:30 at night. The event begins at 1:00 and ends at 2, and you'd be on for like half an hour at least afterwards, socializing. So that would be like 2 or 3 hours of early, like late at night, early morning.
Did you ever have like work or anything?
At the time, no. When I was younger, then I think I was in college. But I should have been sleeping. But
how much sleep did you get?
Not much at all. I'd say 4 hours if I was lucky.
What'd you do? Like during the day, did you spend time on it too? When you were in college, was like your regiment the main? Not to make it sound like. But like for every regimental leader, I mean, for myself, I kind of like no-lifed being on my regiment like constant. I think that's what everybody has.
I completely no-lifed it. Like it was in the back of my head all the time, which it's a very bad thing looking back. But
Well, no, I remember when I was like, I used to be I still am in school, but I'm kind of a senior, so I'm kind of getting out of that. But when I was first making my regiment, and even during when I was leading my regiment, every single second of every single day, my mind was focused on just, okay, so what do I need to do? What's the goals? What do I need to accomplish? What are the problems I'm facing right now? And it would just be running through my head. I just remember, like, in math class, just sitting there, forgetting about whatever algebraic problem was going on and focusing on how am I going to get recruits enough so I'm going to have enough people to be able to come on for a 1v1 when my regiment's so small. I don't know if I'm going to be able to when I first started out.
So yeah, exactly. It's in the back of your head all the time, and you're worrying about it so much when nobody else is, and you really shouldn't be, because at the end of the day, it's just a game. But it had such an effect on me, like meeting these people and having these people in my regiment, and it was like it was an addiction. It's an addiction.
Well, on a more psychological level, because I tend to I want to figure everything out sometimes, and what regiments do is, everybody has like different human needs. Well, they're all the same, but we all meet them differently. And the 6 ones are, just to say briefly, is we all have a need for certainty, variety, significance, love and connection, contribution beyond ourselves, and growth. Now, let's look this in a term of a regiment. So regiments, when I was leading my regiment, I didn't know how the hell it was going to stick around, but I knew for certain I was going to make it work somehow. There just some way in my body told me it's going to happen. And every single day was uncertain. It was exciting. I didn't know what was going to happen, and I had problems every single day. And as much as we hate having problems, we need them to be able to feel like we have something to do, that it's exciting. Because if we do the same thing over and over again, I know if leading a regiment just was getting on for a casual event every single day, that'd be boring. The kind of the drama behind it does make it more engaging. Now, the other one is significance. I think leading a regiment, sometimes we focus it in, my theory is, on ourselves because we like having that control and having that admiration. However, long term, that's actually a bad thing, and that's what a lot of people fail at doing. But I think that's probably why. That's my theory. I could be wrong. Number 4 is, love and connection. We meet that with our members for sure because we're growing a community and we have people that we honestly do care about. I think, of course, in regiments, especially in a smaller community, there's a lot of manipulation. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I've definitely done, I'd say, some manipulation when I first started out getting people to join my regiment. I had like a merge one time and kind of, there was this 13-year-old like kid who I kind of got to join with some shady tactics. But I'll talk about that later in a later podcast. I'm not perfect. But yeah, that's important, the connection and the growth with the members. And number 5 is contribution beyond oneself. When you're in a regiment, all the time you're giving yourself to what is seen as a higher cost. Now, again, this is a video game, but when you lead a regiment, you have a completely different way of looking at it, right? It becomes so much more than a game. For me, it was like my life for like my high school year. Now, it took me a while, and I finally feel like I've emerged out from that, and I can kind of look at it from a different perspective. But when you're younger, it molds you as a person. The last thing I think is growth, and I think this is the most fulfilling thing in leading a regiment is, I mean, for you, Irish, I want you to talk about your growth, but as a person you grow, and also seeing your regiment grow is the most fulfilling thing. I mean, especially growing meleeers. When you see someone go from like terrible, but you're able to help cultivate them and grow them, it's so freaking satisfying. And seeing your regiment grow from like a bunch of buffoons who don't know how to left face and right face to being able to win NAN WL League 2 AAF is awesome. It's an awesome experience, and I'd like to talk to you about what your growth was like in.
Oh, well, initially we just had plebs basically mostly. We'd 1 or 2 really talented guys joining.
How did people view, like, what were the opinions of other people and your probability of success? Like, how successful did other people think you'd be, and what did the competitive players think of you? Because generally it tends to be hostile. Like, I knew when I started to lead the AEF, I wasn't taken seriously at all by like any competitive regiments.
Well, only the last 2 years was the 16M ever considered really a worthwhile competitive regiment. When we initially began, I kind of wanted to do some competitive stuff, but we were so bad at the time. We were getting smashed by everybody left and right. I'm pretty sure we participated in NA and WL. Was it like season 6 or 7? And we got completely trashed, pretty much by everybody. About up until the end of it, where we were actually starting to get a lot better. And so nobody considered us. Nobody really had an opinion about us because they didn't know us too much. And we were just a casual regiment trying to with an ambition of becoming competitive. But we were always casual. We never really abandoned the casual side. We always kept it up, and as a result, more kind of casual players joined rather than melee legends. We had a couple of talented guys who, like,
Could you say who they were and talk a little bit about them?
People like.
Who were some of your highlight players?
Highlight players? Well, originally I would say there would be Blade Hawk. There would be Sir Spacey, who, ironically enough, was also 104th, not at the same time as me and you, but brought him in. Blade Hawk, Spacey. I think those 2 names at first spring to mind. They were very good back then. They still are when they do play, and they carried us a bit. So we were lucky to have them, but the rest of us were kind of just still learning and still casual enough.
Who'd you have for like leaders? What were some powerful leaders you had? Impactful
leaders. Oh well, the 12th. Well, I'm not sure if it was 12th or 16th back then, but I was good friends with a regiment called 94th. And they had some officers or NCOs and COs in there, and some enlisted actually, who ended up joining me. There was Hess, and there was Haz, otherwise known as Hungry 7. And when they joined me, I'm pretty sure I'd Haz as Lieutenant Colonel, and Hess was Major, and they were really great guys. Like, like personality wise, they were good guys. In terms of in